Friend, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. As I said in the beginning of the service, I am so happy to see all of you. I'll never speak to you again because you didn't bring 3 people with you. But thanks for being here. It is well known that Abraham Lincoln was the President of the United States who made Thanksgiving a formal holiday. Thanksgiving became a national holiday in 1863 when Lincoln proclaimed, and I'll quote, "In every part of the United States and also those who are at sea and those who are sojourning in foreign lands to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November, next as a day of thanksgiving and prayer to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens." It was a tremendous act of hope because, of course, Lincoln was proclaiming this in the middle of the Civil War. And if the entire statement, I'm not going to read it this evening, is an amazing statement about his hope and what he thought about the United States. Nevertheless, it wasn't Lincoln who really created Thanksgiving. George Washington proclaimed the first Thanksgiving on October 3rd, 1789. And I want to read to you, I'm not going to read to you the whole thing, but a lot of it, I want to read to you what the proclamation said. And I want you to be very mindful of the language that he used, not just what he said, but how he said it. He said, "Whereas it is the duty of all nations to acknowledge the providence of Almighty God, to obey his will, to be grateful for his benefits, and humbly to implore his protection and favor. Whereas both houses of Congress have by their joint committee requested me to recommend to the people of the United States a day of public thanksgiving and prayer to be observed by acknowledging with grateful hearts the many signaled favors of Almighty God, especially by affording them an opportunity peaceably to establish a form of government for their safety and happiness. Now, therefore, I do recommend and assign Thursday, the 26th day of November, next to be devoted by the people of these states to the service of that great and glorious being who is the beneficent author of all the good that is, and that will be, that we may then all unite in rendering unto him our sincere and humble thanks." You can read it if you want to go online and read the entire thing. It's generally that sense of the flowery language. So clearly, Washington's intention was to unify our country and not to theologize it. But, and I'm sure you could tell by the language, his proclamation intentionally framed Thanksgiving as a holy day. He was thanking God for making all of this possible, the beneficent one, the Almighty. That was the way he understood the Thanksgiving experience. He was expressing faith in God as an essential to the American character. America is under divine providence. God is rooting for America. Everything that we've achieved is because of God. But all did not agree with this kind of public expression of thanksgiving. Our good old friend Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, the 3rd president of the United States, refused to endorse the tradition when he declined to make a proclamation in 1801, the beginning of his presidency. For Jefferson, supporting the holiday meant supporting state-sponsored religion, since Thanksgiving is rooted in the Puritan religious traditions. At the time, Jefferson political foes wanted to use his position as a political weapon and to try to convince Americans that Jefferson was an atheist who was making America less godly. Boy, I've heard that before, haven't you? In November 1801, a Baptist group from Connecticut wrote to Jefferson expressing concern that their state constitution did not implicitly protect religious liberty, and he wanted to affirm that Jefferson would protect religious liberty in the United States. So there's a famous letter that Jefferson wrote. It's called Letter to the Danbury Baptist, January 1st, 1802. which includes, and the language you're going to be very familiar with. It says, he said, believing with you that religion is a matter which lies solely between man and his God, that he owes account to none other for his faith or his worship, that the legitimate powers of government reaches actions only and not opinions. I contemplate with sovereign reverence that act of the whole American people which declared that their legislature should, quote, make no law respecting the establishment of religion and prohibition of free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state. The famous phrase that has become part of our political culture, building a wall of separation between church and state. In other words, he said, Thanksgiving is not going to be on my agenda. Thanksgiving isn't appropriate. Thanksgiving is a violation of the separation of church and state. In other words, even Thanksgiving was not appropriate. Now, friends, over time, Washington won. And Thanksgiving has been part of our national heritage, and it's a good part of our national heritage. Nevertheless, as Jews living in these challenging times, even dangerous times, I'm concerned about any idea that our national government supports a religious interpretation of the American experience. Now, I'm not giving an anti-Thanksgiving message, but a cautionary note on religious life and religion in American life. Personally, I've gone through 3 stages of my understanding. Initially, I affirmed an absolute separation of church and state. An expression of religion connected to the state was objectionable. I've long been a supporter of the American United for the separation of church and state, a really fascinating organization run by clergy people who are very concerned about church-state issues. Somewhere along the line, I softened. And I began to think, well, there's a difference between the separation of church and state and allowing people to use religious language in public life, because religion can be inspirational, of course. And as long as one version is not imposed upon another, how can that be harmful? Indeed, doesn't religion strengthen us? And this is where my absolute selfishness came through. I had kids going to Jewish day schools. I'm saying, why can't the state help me with the tuition to go to Jewish day school? My deviation was a mistake, and it was quite naive. Washington was well-intended, but in my opinion, Jefferson was right. Look at the Supreme Court in the past several years. In Carson versus Macon, the court held for the first time that a state must fund religious activity as part of an educational aid program. And James Madison, the author of the First Amendment, explicitly warned against taxpayer funding of religion, including religious education, because it would be the first step in allowing government to force citizens to conform to the preferred faith of those in power. Then came Kennedy and Bremerton School District, in which the court ruled in favor of a Christian public school football coach who prayed with his players while on duty, and the Supreme Court basically said that, oh, it wasn't so terrible. Well, it was so terrible because it turned out to be a very coercive situation where the coach is gathering people on the 50-yard line, and all the students are looking around, and if you don't go along with the coach, you're endangered. Christian nationalism has become a powerful force within the Republican Party. Before entering Congress, Speaker of the House Michael Johnson spent much of his legal career working for conservative Christian organizations fighting against restrictions on religion in schools, government, and other public spaces. And then you remember this picture right after Speaker of the House Johnson took office and took his oath. What did he do? There's this picture of some of his people in front of the podium on their knees praying. And he was interviewed on NBC about that, and he said, Religious faith is a big part of what it means to be an American. Friends, these are challenging times for Jews in America. Anti-Semitism is intensifying. It has always been there, of course. And I love my tofurkey and pumpkin pie. I love my tofurkey in theory, but this year it was very tough. I don't think I think Jan and I are still recovering from it. No, okay. No, I like pumpkin pie. I like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. But we should leave those things alone, okay? But I also love our Constitution and freedom of religion. I support an America that has a beautiful tapestry of religious diversity, including atheism. I feel that each religion must be honored, not homogenized to fit in. I don't want any politician waving a Bible and telling me how godly America is. Enough is enough. Thomas Jefferson, you have my vote. My friends, who would you vote for, Washington or Jefferson? Shabbat shalom.